On the beaches you see right here, hundreds and thousands of Allied soldiers, British and French, were waiting for a possible evacuation to the British Isles. Eventually, many were evacuated, but this raises the question, how were the Allies able to evacuate their troops? Did Hitler let them evacuate? Why didn't the Germans just crush the Dunkirk pocket? That is what you will find out today. Good to have you back on the channel. If you're new on this channel, my name is Stefan. I'm a Dutch history teacher and I love to cover history partially on location. Right now, I'm in Dunkirk, France. And if you find this content interesting, please consider subscribing and do not forget to hit that notification bell.
Following the German invasion of Poland in 1939, Great Britain deployed an expeditionary force to France, which expanded to 10 infantry divisions by May 1940. Around the same time, Adolf Hitler approved a sweeping offensive against France, Belgium and the Netherlands, and Luxembourg of course, a strategy masterminded by General Erich von Manstein. The assault began at dawn on May 10th, launched by Germany's Army and Air Force. Adhering to their pre-arranged strategy, the Allies countered by sending 2 French armies and 9 British divisions into Belgium to meet the invaders. However, the situation shifted drastically on May 13th when 6 German divisions shattered French defensive lines further south along the Meuse River, driving northwest toward the coast. By May 20th, German troops reached the mouth of the Somme River near Abbeville. This rapid advance to the English Channel effectively cut off the trapped Allied armies in northern France and Belgium. Alarmed by this swift German breakthrough, General Lord Gort, commander of the British Expeditionary Force, alerted the British government on May 19th that he might need to pull his forces back to the coast for an evacuation. In response, the War Office, the Admiralty, and Vice Admiral Sir Bertram Ramsay began hastily putting together a rescue plan, designated Operation Dynamo. General Sir Edmund Ironside of the British Chief of Imperial General Staff said, "We shall have lost practically all our trained soldiers by the next few days unless a miracle appears to help us." The chances of pulling off a successful evacuation looked bleak as German troops pushed northeast along the coastline. Boulogne and Calais fell quickly into enemy hands, leaving Dunkirk as the final remaining port where Allied troops could escape.
And it's incredible. I mean, imagine if you're one of these many Allied soldiers stranded here. German airplanes bound you with bombs from the air and you're waiting here, hoping, praying to be evacuated and make it out alive.
Then came the crucial turning point. On May 24th, General Gerd von Rundstedt ordered his armored columns to stop just 15 miles outside of Dunkirk. This halt order remains one of World War II's most fiercely debated moves. While surviving German generals later blamed Hitler entirely for letting the Allies escape, historical evidence shows that several senior military commanders actually shared the decision. Contrary to widespread opinion, Hitler did not originate the halt order. On May 24th, the dictator was no longer able to stop the panzers because, at that moment, they had already been stopped. By May 24th, 1940, German panzers were positioned just 15 kilometers from Dunkirk, having already crossed the final natural obstacle of the AA River. With virtually no Allied troops standing between the German armor and the port, it seemed a matter of hours before nearly 500,000 British, French and Belgian soldiers would be hopelessly trapped. Then, To the utter astonishment of the Allies, the German tanks suddenly ground to a halt as if by magic, marking the beginning of the famous Miracle of Dunkirk. Adolf Hitler himself did not originate this stop order. By the time he intervened, the panzers had already been halted due to a massive command crisis within the German General Officer Corps. This crisis stemmed from a bitter conflict between traditionalist and progressive military thinking. While the aggressive frontline panzer generals and the Army High Command wanted to push forward ruthlessly to deliver a decisive blow, the more conservative army group commanders, specifically Günther von Kluge and Gerd von Rundstedt, suffered from a severe flank psychosis. They deeply feared that their rapid, unprecedented victory would leave their tank columns exposed and cut off by an Allied counteroffensive, a threat that intelligence reports and other generals on the ground confirmed was entirely non-existent. The actual pause began a day earlier, triggered by an ancient message from General Ewald von Kleist regarding his tank losses. This communication prompted General von Kluge to suggest that the fast-moving armored wing pause for 24 hours to let the infantry formations close up. Rundstedt eagerly agreed and issued a close-up order for May 24th, a decision that deeply frustrated frontline commanders like Heinz Guderian, who argued that any delay would merely give the Allies time to fortify the ports and escape. In an effort to salvage the operation's momentum, the Army High Command attempted a radical midnight power move by stripping Rundstedt of his armor and reassigning the panzers to a more aggressive army group. However, when Hitler visited Rundstedt the next morning, he was furious that the High Command had acted behind his back. Sharing Rundstedt's cautious instincts, Hitler immediately nullified the High Command's reassignments and officially confirmed the pause, while explicitly leaving the operational details and the ultimate duration of the stop up to Rundstedt himself. The halt order triggered widespread fury and protest throughout the German military structure. Chief of Staff Franz Halder was livid, realizing that his entire invasion strategy had been abandoned, while other commanders found it absurd that their superior armor was being kept idle like a parade while the Allied forces marched unhindered right past them toward the coast. Some units, like Sepp Dietrich's SS regiment, even openly defied the order by crossing the canal anyway to seize high ground. Recognizing the unfolding disaster, Halder and Commander-in-Chief Walter von Brauchitsch tried desperately to reverse the decision. Brauchitsch confronted Hitler, but the Führer launched into a furious tirade about insubordination that completely broke the general's nerve. Undeterred, Halder tried a subterranean tactic, drafting a cleverly worded directive that subtly gave field commanders the go-ahead to resume the advance toward Dunkirk. In an incredible turn of events, Rundstedt stubbornly refused to pass Halder's directive down to his troops, insisting on keeping his tanks stationary through May 25th. While post-war history often remembers Rundstedt as a brilliant commander, his rigid, old-school fear of an isolated tank thrust ultimately saved the British Expeditionary Force from annihilation. The German pause thus gave the British and French a vital window to set up a defensive perimeter around Dunkirk and kick Operation Dynamo into gear. Meanwhile, Luftwaffe Chief Hermann Göring assured Hitler that the German Air Force could completely destroy the escaping Allies through bombing alone. The British evacuation officially began on the night of May 26th. The French, however, initially wanted to hold Dunkirk as a fortress. They didn't pivot to a withdrawal until May 28th, when they finally ordered Admiral Jean-Marie Charles Abrial to coordinate with the British. To aid the effort, the Royal Navy mobilized hundreds of civilian pleasure boats to ferry soldiers from the shallow beaches out to larger warships waiting in deeper water. Preventing the evacuation turned out to be far tougher for the Luftwaffe than Göring had predicted. Because German fighters were still flying out of the bases in Western Germany, they had longer to commute to the battlefield than British pilots flying straight from England. While the Royal Air Force couldn't completely win control of the skies over Dunkirk, they successfully disrupted the German bombers, downing 240 enemy planes while losing 177 of their own. Hitler actually cancelled his Halt order on May 26th, but friction and confusion within the German command delayed their advance. In fact, the Germans didn't even realize a mass British evacuation was underway until May 30th. By the early hours of June 4th, the final British vessel slipped away from the harbor. The rescue was a massive triumph of heroism and logistics orchestrated by Admiral Ramsay and the Royal Navy. Ultimately, the British, with French help, rescued 338,000 soldiers, including 224,000 British troops, vastly exceeding everyone's expectations. Yet the price of victory was steep. Out of 760 British ships deployed, 228, mostly smaller craft, were sunk by airstrikes, while the French lost 60 of their roughly 300 vessels. Early June, the Dunkirk operation was completed. France would surrender on May 22nd. So what happened during the weeks in between? Why didn't the French fight till the bitter end? I went to the location where the French actually surrendered and made this video about the topic. Go watch it next.